In the 1980s, aged cartoonist Peter Nicholson achieved a singular breakthrough when he brought cartoon-style satire to life on television via the now legendary Rubbery Figures.
Bob, we're in trouble.
Leave me alone, Paul. What's the problem this time?
We're losing altitude and we're heading straight for that election over there.
We need to lose some ballast. Throw over some first home buyers.
First home buyers, over you go. It's not working, Bob. We need more hot air.
I think I've got something here. There'll be no Australian child living in poverty by 1990.
Oh, it's working, Bob. It really is working. Have you got any more?
No worries, Paul. I've got all our old election promises in the other pocket.
Rubbery Figures, who are, alas, no more, but Peter Nicholson's exhibition, The Rubbery Years, is currently touring Australia, and Peter Nicholson himself is about to take up the post of editorial cartoonist with The Australian, very soon, in point of fact, a couple of days, something like that.
That's right, yeah.
Rubbery Figures, that expression, you know, I think it was concerned with Lynch, wasn't it?
It was a budget of Phil Lynch's that, I don't know whether he described it as rubbery or someone else described it as being full of rubbery figures.
Yes, it might have been the opposition.
It might have been the opposition, but since then people have described lots of budgets as being full of rubbery figures.
Yeah, it's a marvellous expression. It seems to sum up a lot to do with the rather cynical and sardonic Canberra.
Yeah, well, that's right. It was, I mean, the exhibition focuses on the 80s, and there were so many personalities then who were great for satire, you know, from John Elliott through to Joe Bjelke-Peterson. I mean, they almost sort of made themselves, I think.
They're so good, why give it up?
Oh, well, it's just, I've run out of puppets, really. This is a completely new generation of people.
As far as the cartooning of political leaders and business people and so forth, have you ever had a sleepless night as a result of it?
No, probably the reverse. I mean, with
But you've slept very well, you've
I mean, with the Rubbery Figures programs, perhaps at the time I thought maybe we're going in too hard. And the same with my cartoons during that period, cartoons about Elliot and Bond and so on. I thought, you know, maybe this is a bit unfair. And then afterwards I thought, you know, I had sort of sleepless nights thinking, why didn't we go in a bit harder?
You see, when you think of hardness, you think of Gerald's scarf. We're going to show in just a moment. This illustration, this cartoon he did of Princess Margaret, as a warthog. I mean, really,
Yes.
It couldn't be tougher. You wouldn't do anything like this, would you?
Well, I sort of, I guess my style's a bit different from his. I mean, he's a wonderful draftsman, a magnificent draftsman, and all those amazing exaggerated figures. I mean, you still instantly know who they are. The features are just terrific. I guess probably with Australian cartoonists, mainly because I suppose most of them are working in daily newspapers, and perhaps influenced by cartoonists like Bruce Petty, they're always sort of very, the figures in them are still sort of redeemable, I think. You know, they're still, I mean, this is what stands out to me in, say, Petty's work, that you're laughing, yes, you're laughing at them and with them at the same time. I mean, they're still sort of, you still know that they're human. And I think that's important. I mean, it's probably unpopular to sort of imagine that politicians are actually human, but I think, you know, that they are.
Yes, I mean, we're doubtful sometimes, but in the case, did you have graphic training, or did it come as a result of an enthusiasm?
Well, the latter, really. I did law at Melbourne Uni, and it was sort of a terrible mistake, I think, for me after a few years.
Law's a terrible mistake with you doing it, yeah.
Well, yes. And I thought, you know, I thought, this is terrible, I've made a mistake, and I started doing cartoons, but I was doing little drawings of my friends at the university and this sort of thing, so I sort of got started there, but I did 1 year at a tech school trying to learn to draw, but, you know, by that time the cartoons were already being published and I was sort of away.
Now, you're going to illustrate, and I'll pass them to you, because this is a fascinating exercise to see the beginnings of a cartoon. I mean, the very genesis of it.
Right. Well, I never sort of know how to start a cartoon off, because you're sort of just groping around on a blank sheet. So in this case here, I started off with a squiggle of Paul Keating as a sort of a Chinese stallholder at a market, because this was about him sort of soft peddling on human rights in Asia. So I've got him sort of as a stallholder. Then I put him in a boat here one of those sort of boats where they sort of jostle for position, you know, in a market. And I've got him sort of sailing past some people who are drowning, which is sort of the people, you know, human rights issue. So then the third drawing here is sort of, I've really got the cartoon more or less roughed out in a form where, you know, someone could look at it and work out whether they liked it or not. And then normally I'd then go and show that to people around the office and see what they think about it, you know. And then I sort of go with a more finished rough, which is this one here in pencil, and then draw it up sort of in the final form with ink and crayon or ink and wash, whatever.
Yeah. In point of fact, it's a very tough commentary.
Well, I quite like this cartoon because it's actually still as topical today as it was when I did it 9 months ago.
Oh yes, certainly topical.
And I think it's great when a cartoon sort of has a life that goes beyond the particular issue on the day that you've drawn it on.
Yeah. Now, the other cartoons that we sort of worked at and looked at and thought they were very, very characteristic of your work is this marvellous cartoon. I love this one.
Well, this, you know, actually, this one I had the idea for this one when I was going jogging with a friend of mine who's of Scottish descent.
Yeah.
And we were talking about what multiculturalism meant as we jogged along. We were talking about what multiculturalism meant, you know, a generation ago. And someone mentioned playing the bagpipes, and I'd always sort of wondered why people liked the sound of the bagpipes so much.
Yes, it is problematical.
So anyway, I did this one with the caption, the guy's shouting at this other chap here. I said, "Do you think we'll survive multiculturalism?"
And of course, this still has a sort of currency too, this next
Well, that's
cartoon.
right. This is about the famous Thai teak table of, for the lodge, and Paul Keating saying, "So after all the fuss, we've settled on an Australian heritage 50s gold-flecked Laminex table with all aluminium trim and chrome legs."
Absolutely. How do we treat cartoonists in this country? Do we give you the right status and we pay you correctly and so on?
Well, cartoons seem to be pretty popular. I think it's because Australians are probably a bit irreverent, and they don't mind people taking the piss out of you know, politicians.
Is it possible that the leader on the page could be quite opposing to your particular position?
Yes, that happens quite a lot. In fact, that's often the genesis of an idea for a cartoon. You know, I will go along to lead a conference and everyone discusses, you know, a particular issue, but sometimes if the paper comes out and says one thing, that is quite likely to inspire me to do something saying exactly the opposite.
So a newspaper is not concerned with the cartoonist's political position so much?
No, they're not. No, really they're not. I mean, they take a pluralist type of view, as far as I know, in all the sort of major papers, and it really, I guess, in a sense, that doesn't hurt the paper to do that, to take one stand in the
it always
reader.
Provides a big surprise, you know?
That's right.
Excellent. All the very best with the Australian.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thanks, Peter. And Peter